Yo, what's going on, mixed uppers? Hello. Tripping.
All right. There we go. Input. Yeah. We good. All right. We streaming. What's going on, big steppers? Appreciate y'all tuning in today. We about to get right into it. Welcome to the Get the Stepping Morning Show. I'm your host S2, and we about to get the stepping. Hey, all right. Man, I was on YouTube the other day, and I saw this thing. It was like the Google X CEO, and it was talking about the AI revolution. I watched some of it. I didn't watch all of it, but I really would just want to get right into this because I haven't talked about AI too much, but AI, man, it's going to change the way that we live our life. Just like how, going from the Nokia brick phone to going to flip phones to going to the iPhone. That was like major changes in our ideology, major changes in the way that we think and live our life. I feel like the AI revolution is just as big and it's just as important. So let's just look at this. Let's check it out, man. I think this is really interesting and dope to get into. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Go ahead and hit a like for the algorithm, whatever sources that you tuned in. We got people tuned in right away on this one. I appreciate that. Wherever you tuned in at, Rumble, see we got some people tuned in over there. Go ahead and hit a like. YouTube, hit a like. And let's get right to it. So,
delivered at scale, it's going to have an impact on the world at a scale that no one understands.
We need to make a decision.
They be getting you with those.
I'm not.
Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of.
Hold up, y'all. Hold up. Shout out to the content creator who did this, and this video going crazy too. It's AI Upload. 2 weeks ago, 5.2 million views. Go to check them out. AI Upload. All right.
Google just did an interview at Stanford where he talked about a lot of controversial stuff. Initially, the interview was uploaded on Stanford's YouTube channel, but a couple days later, the interview was taken down from YouTube and everywhere else. But today, I was somehow able to access the interview video after spending multiple hours. So let's watch it together and dissect some important parts of the interview.
In the next year, you're going to see very large context windows, agents, and text to action. When they are delivered at scale, it's going to have an impact on the world at a scale that no one understands yet. Much bigger than the horrific impact we've had by social media, right, in my view. So here's why. In a context window, you can basically use that as short-term memory. And I was shocked that context windows get this long. The technical reasons have to do with the fact that it's hard to serve, hard to calculate, and so forth. The interesting thing about short-term memory is when you feed you ask it a question, read 20 books, you give it the text of the books is the query, and you say, tell me what they say. It forgets the middle, which is exactly how human brains work too, right? That's where we are. With respect to agents, there are people who are now building essentially LLM agents, and the way they do it is they read something like chemistry, they discover the principles of chemistry, and then they test it, and then they add that back into their understanding, right? That's extremely powerful.
So if you use ChatGPT right now, they got this thing called memory. And like with the memory, it's like you can, when you type a prompt in, when they first had ChatGPT, they didn't have the prompts that you would put into the command center or whatever. They didn't have those prompts like where you can go back to it. Now they have it where you can go back to it. So like now, if you like, I do stuff for my business. So if I type like, do stuff for my real estate business, it remembers the name of the business. It remembers other information that I put in about the business if I just put a prompt in because it has memory now. But now they're going to be able to take that memory and put everything together and like synthesize and come up with ideas and stuff. It's crazy.
Powerful. And then the third thing, as I mentioned, is text to action. So I'll give you an example. The government is in the process of trying to ban TikTok. We'll see if that actually happens. If TikTok is banned, here's what I propose each and every one of you do. Say to your LLM the following. Make me a copy of TikTok, steal all the users, steal all the music, put my preferences in it, produce this program in the next 30 seconds, release it, and in 1 hour, if it's not viral, do something different along the same lines. That's the command. Boom, 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 right? You understand how powerful that is.
About to just be able to go and that's crazy. Just think about that. That's crazy.
If you can go from arbitrary language to arbitrary digital command, which is essentially what Python in this scenario is, imagine that each and every human on the planet has their own programmer that actually does what they want, as opposed to the programmers that work for me who don't do what I ask, right? The programmers here know what I'm talking about. So imagine a non-arrogant programmer that actually does what you want, and you don't have to pay all that money to. And there's infinite supply of these programs.
And this is all within the next year or two.
Very soon.
So, we've already discussed on this channel a number of different versions of this, whether you're talking about Aider, Devon, Pythagora, or just using agents to collaborate with each other in code. There are just so many great options for coding assistance right now. However, AI coders that can actually build full-stack complex applications, we're not quite there yet, but hopefully soon. And also, what he's describing of just saying download all the music and the secrets and recreate, that's not really possible right now. Obviously, all of that stuff is behind security walls, and you can't just download all that stuff. So if he's saying, hey, reproduce the functionality, you can certainly do that.
Those three things, and I'm quite convinced it's the union of those three things that will happen in the next wave. So you asked about what else is going to happen. Every 6 months I oscillate. So we're on it's an even odd oscillation. So at the moment, the gap between the frontier models, of which there are now only three, I'll review who they are, and everybody else, appears to me to be getting larger. 6 months ago, I was convinced that the gap was getting smaller. So I invested lots of money in the little companies. Now I'm not so sure. And I'm talking to the big companies, and the big companies are telling me that they need 10 billion, 20 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion.
Stargate is 100 billion, right?
They're very, very hard. Sam Altman is a close friend. He believes that it's going to take about 300 billion, maybe more. I pointed out to him that I'd done the calculation on the amount of energy required. And I then, in the spirit of full disclosure, went to the White House on Friday and told them that we need to become best friends with Canada. Because Canada has really nice people, helped invent AI, and lots of hydropower. Because we as a country do not have enough power to do this. The alternative is to have the Arabs fund it. And I like the Arabs personally. Spent lots of time there, right? But they're not going to adhere to our national security rules, whereas Canada and the US are part of a triumvirate where we all agree on.
So these $100 billion, $300 billion data centers, electricity starts becoming the scarce resource.
Now, first of all, we definitely don't have enough energy resources to achieve AGI. It's just not possible right now. And Eric is also assuming that we're going to need more and more data and larger models to reach AGI. And I think that's also not actually true. Sam Altman has said similar things. He has said that we need to be able to do more with less, or even the same amount of data, because we've already used all the data that humanity has ever created. There's really no more left. So we're going to need to either figure out how to create synthetic data that is valuable, not just derivative.
But that stuff is like technology. I remember being in college and reading about this thing. It was called, I think, Moore's Law or something like that. It was like basically the more over time we've been able to have more storage and fit it into like a smaller chip. And it's like the idea that every few years it doubles, like how much storage we're able to have, it doubles, but then it gets twice as the amount of storage we're able to have gets twice as big, but then this amount of space that it covers is twice as small. So like the chip gets twice as smaller, but then the space that it holds is twice as bigger. But then there was an idea that at the end of it, basically there's a cap that can be reached. So like the chip can only get so small and only can hold so much data. So it's like, what happens after that? And this was when I was in college. So this was like back in, years ago. So about 10 years ago now. Was it about 10? Yeah, about 10 years ago. But that being said though, it makes you think like, man, if that was about 10 years ago and as time progresses, they're saying like now we're about to reach to the point where we're going to use up all the space for the data. So then we're going to have like synthetic data. It's just, man, life is getting crazy fast. And I say crazy, I mean, it's just like stuff that you'd read about, stuff that you like watch movies about. All that stuff is becoming a reality. And I think it's becoming a reality a lot quicker than people are talking about. And I don't think people aren't talking about it because people you don't really know what it is until you know what it is. Like you can't really say what the internet was until you saw it. You can't really say what the power of an iPhone or what the difference between an iPhone was and a a Nokia was when it first came out until you really experienced it, besides the fact that it was a touchscreen. So it's just like all this stuff, we don't really know what's about to happen until it happens. But I think that's why it's important to talk about it, because it's going to happen.
And we're also going to have to do more with the data that we do have.
You were at Google for a long time, and they invented the transformer architecture. Peter.
It's all Peter's fault.
Thanks to brilliant people.
We built a 7-figure business as a 2-person agency, and I wish we had HoneyBook when we started.
I got YouTube
people over there like Peter and Jeff Dean and everyone. But now it doesn't seem like they've kind of lost the initiative to OpenAI, and even the last leaderboard I saw, Anthropic's Claude was at the top of the list. I asked Sundar this; he didn't really give me a very sharp answer. Maybe you have a sharper or a more objective explanation for what's going on there.
I'm no longer a Google employee.
Yes.
In the spirit of full disclosure, Google decided that work-life balance and going home early and working from home was more important than winning.
Shots fired, huh?
Okay, so that is the line that got him in trouble. It was everywhere, all over Twitter, all over the news. When he said Google prioritized work-life balance, going home early, not working as hard as the competitor to winning. They chose work-life balance over winning. And that's actually a pretty common perception of Google.
And the reason startups work is because the people work like hell. And I'm sorry to be so blunt, but the fact of the matter is if you all leave the university and go found a company, you're not going to let people work from home and only come in 1 day a week if you want to compete against the other startups.
This is a different subject for a different day, so I'm not going to comment too much on this. But I do think it's worth asking. Like, he's obviously an older guy, older white dude. You know what I'm saying? Him being white didn't really got too much to do with it, but he's an older dude. So point is, it's a different era. In this era, I do feel like you can work remotely. And still, now don't get it twisted. I do think there's a difference between the bond that's going to be built in office, because you want to have people you're working with side by side, and in-person energy. You can actually, share the energy more, feed off each other energy more. You're going to have more conversations because you're in each other immediate environment. That being said, I don't think it's impossible to people do it all the time as far as building a company remotely.
When in the early days of Google, Microsoft was like that.
Exactly.
But now it seems to be.
And there's a long history in my industry, our industry, I guess, of companies winning in a genuinely creative way and really dominating a space and not making the next transition. It's very well documented. And I think that the truth is, founders are special. The founders need to be in charge. The founders are difficult to work with. They push people hard. As much as we can dislike Elon's personal behavior, look at what he gets out of people. Mm-hmm. I had dinner with him, and he was flying. I was in Montana. He was flying that night at 10 p.m. to have a meeting at midnight with X.AI. Right? Think midnight. About it. I was in Taiwan,
X.AI.
Different country, different culture, and they said that, and this is TSMC, who I'm very impressed with, and they have a rule that the starting PhDs coming out of they're good physicists, work in the factory on the basement floor. Now, can you imagine getting American physicists to do that? The PhDs? Highly unlikely. Different work ethic. And the problem here, the reason I'm being so harsh about work is that these are systems which have network effects.
And I think it's helpful to mention this entire interview was banned. So like he did the interview and it came out on the internet, and then Google made him remove it. But then this guy ended up getting the interview. So that's why it's going viral, I guess.
Effects. So time matters a lot. And in most businesses, time doesn't matter that much, right? You have lots of time. Coke and Pepsi will still be around, and the fight between Coke and Pepsi will continue to go along, and it's all glacial, right? When I dealt with telcos, the typical telco deal would take 18 months to sign, right? There's no reason to take 18 months to do anything. Get it done. It's just, we're in a period of maximum growth, maximum gain.
So here he was asked about competition with China's AI and AGI, and that's his answer. We're ahead, we need to stay ahead, and we need money.
AI is going to play a role or competition with China as well.
So I was the chairman of an AI commission that sort of looked at this very carefully. And you can read it. It's about 752 pages. And I'll just summarize it by saying, we're ahead, we need to stay ahead, and we need lots of money to do so. Our customers were the Senate and the House. And out of that came the CHIPS Act and a lot of other stuff like that. A rough scenario is that if you assume the frontier models drive forward and a few of the open source models, it's likely that a very small number of companies can play this game. Countries, excuse me. What are those countries, or who are they? Countries with a lot of money and a lot of talent, strong educational systems, and a willingness to win. The US is one of them. China's another one. How many others are there?
Are there any others?
I don't know, maybe. But certainly in your lifetimes, the battle between the US and China for knowledge supremacy is going to be the big fight, right? So the US government banned essentially the NVIDIA chips, although they weren't allowed to say that was what they were doing, but they actually did that into China. They have about a 10-year chip advantage. We have a roughly 10-year chip advantage in terms of sub DUV, that is sub 5 nanometer
10 years,
chips.
that
It's
long?
roughly 10 years.
Wow.
And so you're going to have, so an example would be, today we're a couple of years ahead of China. My guess is we'll get a few more years ahead of China, and the Chinese are whopping mad about this. It's like hugely upset about it.
Well, let's talk about a real war that's going on. I know that something you've been very involved in is the Ukraine war, and in particular, I don't know how much you can talk about White Stork and your goal of having $500 drones destroy $5 million tanks.
So
how's that changing warfare?
So I worked for the Secretary of Defense.
$500 drones destroying $1 million tanks. It's pretty crazy.
For 7 years, and tried to change the way we run our military. I'm not a particularly big fan of the military, but it's very expensive, and I wanted to see if I could be helpful. And I think, in my view, I largely failed. They gave me a medal, so they must give medals to failure, or whatever. But my self-criticism was nothing has really changed, and the system in America is not going to lead to real innovation. So watching the Russians use tanks to destroy apartment buildings with little old ladies and kids just drove me crazy. So I decided to work on a company with your friend Sebastian Thrun, and as a former faculty member here, and a whole bunch of Stanford people. And the idea basically is to do two things: use AI in complicated, powerful ways for these essentially robotic war. And the second one is to lower the cost of the robots. Now you sit there and you go, why would a good liberal like me do that? And the answer is that the whole theory of armies is tanks, artillery, and mortar, and we can eliminate all of them.
So here what he's talking about is that Ukraine has been able to create really cheap and simple drones. By spending just a couple $100s, Ukraine is creating 3D printed drones. They carry a bomb, drop it on $1 million tank, and they've been able to do that over and over again.
That's crazy.
So there's this asymmetric warfare happening between drones and more traditional artillery.
So there was an article that you and Henry Kissinger and Dan Huttenlock are...
Yo, that stuff almost made my heart drop. Yeah, the Minecraft thing. Look at that. Look.
Traditional artillery.
Look at that.
So there was an article that you and Henry Kissinger and Dan Huttenlock wrote last year about the nature of knowledge and how it's evolving. I had a discussion the other night about this as well. So for most of history, humans sort of had a mystical understanding of the universe, and then there's the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. And in your article, you argue that now these models are becoming so complicated and difficult to understand that we don't really know what's going on in them. I'll take a quote from Richard Feynman. He says, "What I cannot create, I do not understand." I saw this quote the other day. But now people are creating things they do not, that they can create, but they don't really understand what's inside of them. Is the nature of knowledge changing in a way? Are we going to have to start just taking the word for these models without them being able to explain it to us?
The analogy I would offer is to teenagers. If you have a teenager, you know they're human, but you can't quite figure out what they're thinking. But somehow we've managed in society to adapt to the presence of teenagers, right? And they eventually grow out of it. And I'm just serious. So it's probably the case.
Y'all see, we got a lot of people tuned in right now. I appreciate y'all tuning in, but hit the like for the algorithm. Y'all saying boost us up, boost us up. All right, let's get back into it.
That we're going to have knowledge systems that we cannot fully characterize, but we understand their boundaries, right? We understand the limits of what they can do. And that's probably the best outcome we can get.
Do you think we'll understand the limits?
We'll get pretty good.
You hear how dangerous that is, though? He said we're going to have knowledge systems that we can't fully understand, but we're going to understand their limits. So it's like having a teenager, you know what I'm saying, having a kid. And I think I heard a quote some time ago in a book. It talked about how, people are like planets, right? Like people are like planets. Everybody, there's like one side of a planet that you see, then there's another side that you don't know, right? Like the moon. But this being said, You want to have knowledge systems that you don't really know exactly what it's capable of, but you know the parameters. You know exactly it probably won't blow us up, but we don't know exactly what it'll do. You feel what I'm saying? It maybe won't end us, but it probably will do something else, but we really don't know. So I think that's really dangerous. But at the same time, it's to the point now when it comes to this AI stuff, it doesn't matter about it being dangerous. It's profitable, right? So once it's profitable, and I think people talk about like problems with capitalism. I don't think there are any problems with capitalism personally. I think it's a great free society in which you have the ability to come from the bottom of the bottoms to, rise up and to, experience different things in your life. That being said, one of the drawbacks of it, and just reality speaking, is that we don't think about how it can affect us in the long run when we're focused on how much money it can make right now. And when you're only thinking about how much money it can make right now, you're not thinking about the long-term effects of it. So it's kind of like a lot of things, though. It's like, with vape pens and stuff like that. People are making vape pens. We don't really know what vape pens would do to us. That's why I stopped smoking vape pens. But that's another story for another day. All right, let's get back into it.
He's referencing the way that large language models work, which is really essentially a black box. You put in a prompt, you get a response, but we don't know why certain nodes within the algorithm light up, and we don't know exactly how the answers come to be. It is really a black box. There's a lot of work being done right now trying to kind of unveil what is going on behind the curtain, but we just don't know.
The consensus of my group that meets on every week is that eventually the way you'll do this, so-called adversarial AI, is that there will actually be companies that you will hire and pay money to break your AI system.
Like red team.
So it'll be instead of human red teams, which is what they do today, you'll have whole companies and a whole industry of AI systems whose jobs are to break the existing AI systems and find their vulnerabilities, especially the knowledge that they have that we can't figure out.
Once that happens, it's like we're creating our demise. That's why people say like we're literally creating our demise. Because think about it, it gets to the point where what if it's beneficial for this? And this is all theoretical speaking, right? But what if it's beneficial for this AI system that's a red line or whatever they call it that's going to break your AI system? Oh man, my battery about to go dead. But what if it's official for that? We're about to switch out the batteries, but what if it's if that's the case? All right, let's get back into this, man. Damn. All right.
That makes sense to me. It's also a great project for you here at Stanford, because if you have a graduate student who has to figure out how to attack one of these large models and understand what it does, that is a great skill to build the next.
If the battery goes dead, I'll be back in a second.
Generation. So it makes sense to me that the two will travel together.
All right, let's take some questions from the student. There's one right there in the back. Just say your name.
Earlier you mentioned, and this is related to this comment right now, I'm getting AI that actually does what you want. You just mentioned adversarial AI, and I'm wondering if you could elaborate on that more. So it seems to be, besides obviously compute will increase.
These are like about to go into talking to students and questions and all that. We got the gist of it, but I just think that is a big thing to look out for. We got AI agents that are coming, literal AI agents, to the point where if you type in a prompt and you say, hey, create this video for me, and if it doesn't go viral within 30 minutes, create another video of the same concept, but a different way. Create the same video a different way, same theme a different way, and just keep doing that until it goes viral. Or just think that's the only way that we can, like, right now, think about it. That's the only way we can really rationalize it. But think about doing that just with different areas of life. There's going to be some people like this going to be like the Wild Wild West, like when Limitless, that movie Limitless, when they he thought about the stock market, and it's like beating up a stock market and getting paid. There's going to be so much stuff like that. You go put in a code. There's probably people already doing that. Like I need to get on that. Like put a code into an AI system and then train the AI system to beat the stock market or to short the stocks or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like it's going to be the Wild Wild West, and it's going to be two sides of it. There's going to be people that understand this, understand the capabilities a lot sooner than the public, the mass public is aware of it. And I feel like it's either the knowledge that's going to buy you in or the money that'll buy you in, right? So the knowledge, if you already knowing about it and taking advantage of it and implementing it into your everyday use, that either that will buy you into it, or you'll have the money by the time it becomes available to buy into it. And I feel like that'll be the only red line, right? It can't be available to everybody all at once. It has to be some kind of barriers put into place, and likely it'll be money or the knowledge, knowing how to work it and how to use it. So all that stuff is very important. Let me handle what I got to do right here. Let's actually keep it going. Move on to a different one. Look like I got a little bit of time here. All right, we on borrowed time right now. Moving on to the Do They Like Us segment of things. Yo, I heard Trump he's not doing taxes on overtime. feel like y'all heard about that too. So let's check it out. Here we go. Let's check this out. No taxes on overtime. Let's see what they're talking about. They got hype. Oh, think of that. Yo, am I still live? Oh, I am. Yo, let me see something real quick. Oh, snap. Live from the all right, you know what? We're gonna rock out with this today, y'all. Live from the whatchamacallit. Let me try something real quick. Okay. Hey, not a bad scene. Not a bad scene right here. Not a bad scene. All right, y'all. We still live. We're gonna go ahead and just stick with it. You know what I'm saying? Let's get back to it. And sharing. We are still sharing. No, we're not. 1 second, mix steppers. Stick with me. Stick with me. All right. Whoa. Oh, snap. Hold up. This is what I gotta get better at, y'all. All right, here we go. All right, y'all. We here. We made it. Boom. Yo, is that light bothering you on the back? We good? Thought we good. All right. Let's do it. All right.
That gives. Think of that. Think of that. Think of that.
Think of that.
That gives people more of an incentive to work. It gives the companies a lot. It's a lot easier to get the people. And, you know, I went to some economists, great ones, and I said, what do you think? They said it would be.
Yo, hold up 1 second, Big Steppers. 1 second. 1 second.
Unbelievable. You'll get a whole new workforce by doing that. No taxes on overtime.
No taxes on overtime.
The people who work overtime are among the hardest working citizens in our country. And for too long, no one in Washington has been looking out for them. Those are the people. They really work. They're police officers, nurses, factory workers, construction workers, truck drivers, and machine operators. It's time for the working man and woman to finally catch a break, and that's what we're doing because this is a good one. And I think it's going to be great for the country. So that's why we will be saying that if you're an overtime worker when you're past 40 hours a week, think of that. Your overtime hours will be tax-free. Okay, good? You're going to have it too. And unlike Biden, where he tells you that you don't have to pay your school tuition and he gets rejected, then he goes again and again. Now it's totally gone. Or as they say in politics, it's debunked. It's gone. That was terrible. You know, he kept saying to these students, no more loans, which was very unfair to the millions of people that actually paid off their loans over the years. Some of them took 20 years to pay them off. But that's a dead deal. That's totally dead. You know, they tried to revive it 2 weeks ago. That didn't work out too well. That's a totally dead deal. Yeah. But these will be 3 things that will get done. So if you think about no tax on tips, think of that. Think about this and the Social Security for our seniors, because the seniors have been destroyed by inflation.
Did Trump say no? Oh, I'm looking up. I'm so used to looking up, yo. Did Trump say no tax on tips first? I saw that he said no tax on tips first, and then Kamala said no tax on tips. Now Trump is saying no tax on overtime. Now, if she says no tax on overtime, Trump really got to send her a MAGA hat. Yo, Trump really got to send Kamala a MAGA hat if she does no tax on overtime. And I'll be so weak if he. Hey, yo, Joe Biden was wearing a Trump. I think Joe Biden low key messed with Trump because he calling out the fact that Kamala is got placed in and kicked Joe Biden out. I think that's what Joe Biden was low key showing unity. He was like, "Yo, thanks for speaking up for me, Big Trump." You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what was happening. But yo, let's finish this off.
It's unfair. And this is like a whole new life for them because you're talking about a lot of money. So no tax on Social Securities for our great seniors. And this last one is no tax. You work your ass off. No tax on overtime. And that's so good for the employers. One of our economists said, I think that's actually going to bring money into our economy. You know, when I cut taxes, we had the largest tax cut in history. And when I cut taxes with a much lower rate, the following year, we took in more money than we ever took in with a much higher rate. People, the jobs, people work by a lot.
Yo, so, I think, 1 second, Big Steppers. Go ahead and feel free to leave a comment. Yo, I think no tax on overtime is a great idea. Ultimately, I feel like that's a great idea. Give me 1 second here. Feel like that is a great thing when it comes to the worker. When it comes to the worker, I feel like that's a great thing. No tax on overtime. Give you higher overtime. I mean, higher checks for your overtime. I think that's a really cut forward thing. Of course, everything that glitters isn't gold. So there's going to be some people that, have some other things to say about it. So let's get into what other people have to say about the no tax on overtime payments, because I'm not a political analyst. I'm just bringing you the news. You feel what I'm saying? I'm just bringing you the things that I'll be looking at on my daily life and my daily basis. All right. Let's do it. So I saw this. Truth about Black man. See your band interview. Okay. Here we go. So we have an economist here.
Now,
yo, I'm real ghetto on the stream today, y'all. I'm gonna get this together. Yo, I'm gonna get it together, y'all. All right, 1 sec. I'll be right back. All right. Back. So let's see what's popping off here. This is some Fox News stuff, granted, so it's going to be biased. I mean, of course, the Fox News is more with the Republicans, and you got your CNNs and your MSNBCs and ABCs with the other side, Democrats, more so. All right, let's see what they're talking about here.
this, Donald Trump announcing a new tax policy yesterday. Take a listen.
I'm also announcing that as part of our additional tax cuts, we will end all taxes on overtime. The people who work overtime are among the hardest working citizens in our country. Those are the people, they really work. They're police officers, nurses, factory workers, construction workers, truck drivers, and machine operators. So that's why we will be saying that if you're an overtime worker when you're past 40 hours a week, think of that. Your overtime hours will be tax-free.
Yo, that is That is really dope though. Like for the common person, that's gonna be like you said, like a lot of people that work over 40 hours and they're getting that time and a half. That's what it's called. You know what I'm saying? You're getting that time and a half, but you're not getting paid or you're not getting taxed on that. And you're getting paid more for that. So that, I mean, I guess the idea there is to stimulate the economy from the standpoint of being able to have more money in your pocket, so you're going to spend more money. So I mean, spend more money, save more money, invest more money. You want to put money into the economy is the idea there. I like it. Let's hear what everybody else has to say. I mean, I'm not an economist. Let's see what these economists got to say. All right, we're going to check out these people, which again, Fox Business is going to be more so agreeing with about anything Trump puts out. And then there's another one that I'm going to watch, and it seems like a more independent news source. So let's go ahead and get into them. All right.
Interesting stuff. Brian Westbury joins me now. Okay, Brian, let's begin there. What do you make of Donald Trump's new proposal?
I don't know who Brian Westbury is.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the politics really quickly first. I mean,
he sounds like a Republican.
It's like the Democrats want to give everybody money. President Trump is saying, hey, no, you're going to keep more of the money you're making. And so I love this strategy of kind of
I like that right there. That's a bar. Let's listen to that again.
Combating making. And President Trump I mean, let's talk about the politics really quickly first. I mean, it's like the Democrats want to give everybody money. President Trump is saying, hey, no, you're going to keep more of the money you're making. And so I love this.
Democrats want to give everybody money. Republicans are saying, keep more of the money that you're already making. I like that. I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Strategy of kind of combating the Democrats by saying, hey, if you work hard, you're going to keep more of it. But this goes really deep. I'm going to focus on affordable housing or healthcare, and we just had the report on how the cost of everything is going up. And I always think there's two sides of every economic coin, right? So you might say houses cost a lot, but you have to say, what's the other side of the coin? Cost a lot relative to what? Well, it's your income.
Yeah.
And so if the government is taking all your income, no wonder you can't afford a house. It's not.
It was crazy though. If you make $100,000 a year on paper, you're going to get taxed and you're going to be making, depending on, if you got deductibles and depending on how you make that money, like if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be able to write off more things with that $100,000. If you're working, W-2, you don't really, your taxes are for the most part withheld. So you're getting taxed immediately unless you choose not to withhold them. But that being said, you're going to be coming away with like $65,000 getting taxed from your $100,000 a year, depending on what your write-offs are. Depending on you can come away with like 80,000, depending on what your write-offs are, 85,000, all that kind of stuff, depending on how you invest it. But all of that being said, it is a major difference between making money and keeping your money, right? Because when you make the money, like you have a silent partner. You got a silent partner in making your money, which is crazy, right? Like you making money, but you got a silent partner that's like, yo, give me my money. If you don't get it, then they come and it's like, you got to pay the tax, man. And it's crazy. It's really crazy when you really think about it. Like, I get that you have to pay taxes for the government to do things for us, for the people to straighten the streets, the roads, and, to defend us to defend democracy, to keep us as the dominant power, right? But at the same time, we don't really get too much of a say what the money is spent on, how much of the money is spent on what. We don't get to say any of this, but at the same time, we got to pay it. I don't think that really makes sense, right? Like you have to pay this, but you don't really get a full say-so on what it's being spent on. Our say-so is being able to vote for these people who say they want to do something. But at the same time, just because you say you're going to do it, we've seen time and time again that it doesn't happen the way that they say they're going to do it before they get into the office. So I think that's something to really think about, man. I really just, it's really crazy. So anyway, let's get back into this. It's crazy to think about taxes, though, man. It's one of those things. Like, you got to do it, but it doesn't make you feel good. It Not at all, actually.
Not all about the price of the house. But you have to say, what's the other side of the coin? Cost a lot relative to what? Well, it's your income.
Yeah.
And so if the government is taking all your income, no wonder you can't afford a house. It's not all about the price of the house. It's also about your income. And our government, if you look at federal, state, and local, and all the cost of complying with their regulations, they take 50% of our GDP. So 50% of everything we produce, the government takes. No wonder people can't afford a house. And so
that's crazy. He's an economist. His name is Brian Wesley. Let's just take him at face value right here. He just said 50% of everything that we produce as a society, the government takes. Like I said, we got a silent partner. They're really not that silent. Like, they taking 50% of everything. So he said cost a lot relative to what. Now, regardless of what, the price of just everything is rising. That's just how the economy works. You know what's crazy? I talked about the economy a couple days ago on the stream, right? And I was talking about the gas, how it was like $2.99 when I lived in back out west. And this is still a good stepping morning show because it's 9 o'clock out west. You know what I'm saying? I get stepping. But that being said, when I was out there, it was like $2.99 for gas. And then I talked about like modern day, it's like $3.40, right? I went out the house the other day. I was like, yo, about to get some gas. It was like $3.09 for gas and then $2.99 if you pay cash. I was like, yo, that's crazy. Like, gas is actually going down. But then I thought about it. It's because we're getting closer to an election. It seemed like every time we get closer to an election, the gas prices go down. Am I the only person that see that? Can I get a like, a thumbs up? You know what I'm saying? I see we got a few people tuned in. Appreciate y'all tuned in. Give us a thumbs up for the algorithm, but definitely a thumbs up if you feel like gas prices get lower every time you get closer to an election. I think that's crazy. It's like they be playing this, man. Like, why can't you just lower gas prices the whole time if you have the ability to lower it when we get closer to an election? Whatever.
So every plan like this, where we take less out of overtime pay, take less out of tips, take less out of Social Security, will make everything more affordable for Americans. So I love this plan.
I'm going to have to leave it there, Brian. I'm so sorry. We're running long.
So
all right, let's right back. So this is Fox Business, Brian Wesley. This is Fox Business. Of course, Fox is going to agree with just about everything Trump says, right? So he's very enthusiastic about the plan. He says he loves it. Let's watch that last part again. Then we're going to get into a more independent source and see what they got to say about this Trump no tax on overtime.
All the cost of complying with their regulations, they take 50% of our GDP. So 50% of everything we produce, the government takes. No wonder people can't afford a house. And so every plan like this, where we take less out of overtime pay, take less out of tips, take less out of Social Security, will make everything more affordable for Americans. So I love this plan.
I'm going to have to leave it there, Brian. I'm so sorry. We're running long. That's my fault. But thank you so much for being here. Have yourself a great weekend. That's the good news.
All right, thank you, Ashley.
All right.
Hey, real estate.
Yo, so we just heard what they had to say right there. We heard what he had to say right there. I mean, the biggest thing for me, like I said, it sounds like a good idea. Over 40 hours. You know, a lot of people work 60, 65, 70 hours a week. So that's half of your paycheck where you're getting paid time and a half and you're not being taxed on it. Shout out to Trump. In my head, I think that sounds great. The more that you can let people keep what they earn versus having to just feel like you got to give your money to the tax man. And like a question, unless you can write it off in certain ways, but it's like the people who get taxed the most are the people who work the hardest for their money. When I say work the hardest, I mean like trading time for money, right? Because like when you're a business owner, you're not necessarily trading time for money. That's a major difference. When you're trading time for money versus when you're basically letting you paid on your results, because you either trade time for money or you get paid on your results. Those are the only two things that you really can do in this era, right? Either you trade time for money, which means you go clock in, you clock out, and you know, during that time, you more than most likely are going to get taxed right up front as soon as you get your check, or you're going to get paid based on your results, which means that there may be ideally it's not, but it's probably a lapse in time before you get paid. It's not as periodic, but you're also able to write off things at the end of the year or write off things at the end of a quarter, or however you got your taxes, you know, installment pay, or however you pay your taxes, right? This being said, if you're able to trade time for money and work 30 hours, 20 hours, 10 hours, get paid time and a half, yo, like at that point, it's no need to work a sales job. Like you really might as well work a real job and just get paid time and a half and enjoy your overtime and let that be your sales commission. So I mean, like that's to me, that's what it sounds like. But if you're going to trade time for money, then I mean, if you're going to, get paid based on your results, then this doesn't really affect you too much because it's a different kind of incentive, right? But that being said, let's get into what a more independent source has to say about Trump and his taxes. All right. 1 second here, big steppers. Trump about the 2 point just in Trump. All right, here we go. Found it. So this guy says Trump OT tax cut plan part of vulgar action by both candidates. George Will on balance. And this is News Nation. Okay, let's hear what they're talking about.
Today, he rolled out a brand new policy proposal of giving away money that the American people don't have. No taxes on overtime. Take a listen.
Cut taxes for working families, and we will have no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security benefits. I'm also announcing that as part of our additional tax cuts, we will end all taxes on overtime.
Now,
I'm always on tips, no taxes on families, and we will have
don't have no taxes on overtime. Take a listen.
Cut taxes for working families, and we will have no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security benefits. I'm also announcing that as part of
and this is going to be me. I got to do this. All right.
Of our additional tax cuts, we will end all taxes on overtime.
Now, here's my question. Will that
taxes
on overtime? Take a listen.
Cut
Today,
one more time,
he rolled out a brand new policy proposal of giving away money that the American people don't have. No taxes on overtime. Take a listen.
Cut taxes for working families, and we will have no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security benefits. I'm also announcing that as part of our additional
I kept playing that back because I thought I heard. I'm like, yo, what? So no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security benefits. That's interesting. I would have thought that there was never taxes on Social Security benefits. So that I literally kept playing it back. So I'm like, yo, am I hearing this right? I must be tripping. I don't want to say nothing because I thought I was tripping. But I thought there was always no taxes on Social Security benefits. Why would the government tax money that they're giving you? The government be out of hand, bro. That is out of hand. I'm gonna do some research about that. But that's crazy. That's out of hand. How you gonna tax the money that you're giving me? That's out of hand. That's out of hand.
Tax cuts. We will end all taxes on overtime.
Now, here's my question. Will that policy proposal...
All right. That's insane. Give me 1 second, big steppers. Can't believe I'm just now doing this. This is my fault. This is my fault right here. I should have been did this. Big steppers tuning in. Appreciate y'all. You know what I'm saying? Boom. Boom. Show some love. There it is. All right. All right. Now we back cooking. We back cooking. Let's go.
Get the same type of scrutiny, okay? Or will it get much tougher scrutiny than Kamala Harris's proposals of $25,000 for everybody to buy their first-time house, so every house costs...
I'll tell you what, I think that is a little bit more wild than $25,000 for everybody to get, buy their first house. I think that's more wild because you're giving money again versus allow somebody to keep money that they rightfully work for. I don't think those are comparable. But let's listen. Let's listen. We're gonna listen, but I don't think those are comparable personally.
$25,000 more.
And the $6,000 child tax credit and all the rest. We're in an uncommonly vulgar auction between these two candidates. Both of
Yo, that's what I like. That's what I thought he was about to say. Basically, a vulgar auction. Whatever we're gonna just say, because that's the thing. Like I just talked about earlier, you can say whatever. Are you gonna do it is another thing. Personally, I like the idea of what Trump is doing a little bit more than Kamala. But let's listen.
them giving away money and giving away government revenues, oblivious of the fact.
How is that giving away money?
We're in an.
All right, I'm trying to listen to this dude because I feel like he's independent. But you're not giving away money when you're allowing people to keep money. Am I the only person that think that you're not giving away money if you're allowing somebody to keep what they work for? That's a major difference.
Uncommonly vulgar auction between these two candidates. Both of them giving away money and giving away government revenues, oblivious of the fact, Leland, that the day of the debate, the Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan, scrupulously fair, said that by the end of this fiscal year, that is the end of this month, the federal government will have a $2 trillion deficit. The economy is growing. We're at more than.
But the government, let's just speak, bro. The government has not had money since I've been in school. Since I was like 5th, 6th grade, when they were talking about we $1 trillion in debt. What you tripping about us keeping our money for? Don't make sense. No, it's not our fault the government be misspent. The government don't be spending right. But they can also print money up whenever they want, bro. I think that's the crazy. They make too much of a big deal out of us keeping money when they ultimately can print money. And I understand the more you print money, the more it can devalue the dollar, right? But at the same time, no. It doesn't make sense to me. Because if you can just go out and print more money, what's the problem with people keeping more of their money? Versus, I understand if you're talking about the government giving money, which literally with that, even with the first kid thing, I like that with Kamala. Like the kid, $6,000 tax credit, that's dope. The $25,000 for a first home is kind of crazy, but that's what they're gonna do. Who am I not to try to take advantage of it? You know what I'm saying?
In full employment, there are hundreds of thousands of unfilled jobs, and we're still running a deficit of $2 trillion a month. And these candidates are bidding with one another to see how much worse each of them can make it.
Thanks for watching.
So his idea is that they both, he won't messing with both of them. I can respect that. He won't messing with both of them. But at the same time, I do think you can see the positive on both sides regarding the kid, right? And then also the tax plan with Trump with the no overtime taxes. I think that's really a dope thing, right? So let's go back out here. And hit y'all up right here. Ooh, 1 second, big steppers. Now, this next thing, what we have on the next thing on the schedule is, here we go. Ooh, 1 second, big steppers. All right. Still with the do they like us segment of things. Do they like us? All right. We're gonna go ahead and go over this Trump versus Harris tax plan. This is what I want to go ahead and jump into because they're saying it's a $2.3 trillion gap between these, tax plans. This came out a day ago, and this was before Trump announced his tax plan, his plan on the taxes for no overtime taxes. Here we go. Let's jump into this.
Harris's tax policies are on completely different tracks.
I will pay.
Do you got premium? I ain't got even taxing Social Security personally. Why would you tax money that you're giving to people? Like, you're supposed to be giving them money to make their lives easier, but you're giving them money and you want to make their lives tougher. How does that make sense? Can anybody help me understand how that makes sense? It doesn't make sense. So that's crazy to me. Crazy. Let's get back into it.
Solvent 1 year earlier than previously forecast.
This is Wait, so Social Security is supposed to be insolvent by 2033. That's crazy. That's 9 years from now. That's crazy. Just switched up right there. They talked about what the taxes are doing, and this is how the taxes will be paid for. So far, I'm not opposed to what either of them are doing. And I think the reason why, actually, I know the reason why I'm like this is because I just know that there's way more money that our government has that they give out for nefarious reasons, for reasons that are not important ultimately to the everyday American, but it's important to, I guess, global standing. But at the same time, if you're going to tax the everyday American, and if you're going to put so much basically pressure on the everyday American to support the world, then why not, as a government, support the everyday American? I mean, that's a simple give and take, right? It's simple to me, very simple. So I think there should be more tax cuts, be it for either corporations or what's called, and we're going to get into the China thing right here, right? Because to me, let's actually see what they're about to say. Let's see.
Costing $1,700 a year.
I've heard that a lot, and if that's the case, then I don't think it's a good idea. But at the same time, let's listen to more.
For the typical household. Harris's plan, on the other hand, veers.
They didn't give us any more. So if that's really the case, then we gotta do some rethink. I guess this idea is that you're keeping more money, so you got to spend more money. But let's see if we can juxtapose that to what Kamala has planned for us.
Away from tariffs and instead raises taxes on the top 3% of American households. Harris's
raise taxes on the super wealthy. Okay, let's hear what she has mapped out. Let's hear
tax plan, in line with Biden's most recent budget proposal, would raise nearly $5 trillion in revenue. A big part.
That's more than Trump. Trump was at 2.8 million. That's about 1.9 million more than Trump.
Of that plan.
Trillion, excuse me, 1.9 trillion. Put some respect on your name.
And is bringing the corporate rate up to 28%.
The Biden administration, which she's adopted their plans,
I believe the corporate rate right now is 22%.
Basically said
this is like a big point right here, right? Because like the everyday American feels like $400,000. We make if you make $200,000 a year, you're not making $400,000 a year, right? And it's households. So if you're a couple and you're bringing in 200, and your significant other is bringing in 100, that's $300,000. At 300,000, I believe at $120,000 a year, you're in like the top 5% of like global wealth. That's crazy, ain't it? Like at 100 to 150 or something like that, you're in like the top 10%, top 10% of global wealth. So then once you get up to $400,000 and above, I believe you're at like the top 2, or apparently it's the top 3%. That's what I just said, top 3%. So that's when this is a whole separate thing. But people talk about being a millionaire, and like, yeah, granted, in my life, I'll be a millionaire. I believe that. But that being said, though, I feel like it's not just about being a millionaire. It's about like, you want to have like $1 million worth of assets. Maybe you want to have like $1 million liquid cash. What will you really do with the $1 million liquid cash? I mean, unless you got like multiple millions of dollars, then you're about to invest it into something else or something. But all of that being said, I think being a millionaire has to do with your total net worth, right? It has to be more about that, being your total net worth. Now let's chop this down a little bit. Now, this is what I'm like concerned about and curious about, right? Because if we're talking about $400,000, now take that same couple. One earns $200,000 a year, another earns $100,000 a year. Now, the same couple also has assets that are upward worth to $500,000 together, right? Their assets can be in stocks. Their assets can be in real estate. Their assets can be in bonds. Their assets can be in whatever they are. Now, my question to Kamala Harris, because we also heard about her tax plan with the 25% unrealized gains tax, right? So now my question is, does the $400,000, is that earned only like generated income, right? So like only you're counting in, your rent that's coming in for the year, like you count in money from the dividends that you're getting from your investments, rather than the whole entirety of what you're worth, your net worth. So is it individuals whose net worth is over $400,000 that you're raising taxes on, or is it individuals whose net worth is under $400,000? Is it net worth or is it income? I don't think they specified that here. I'm going to have to do more research for myself. But I do think that's a big deciding factor because there's not a lot of people bringing in $300,000, $400,000 a year. The president only gets paid $450,000 a year. The president of the United States, I remember I was really curious about this when Barack Obama was president. He only get paid $450,000 a year. So obviously they feel like that's in a salary regarding cash that comes in yearly that makes you top, 3% in the world. If it's not only the cash that's coming in, if it's also included with your net worth, then I don't think that that's fair at all. And I actually think it's setting a bad precedent because $400,000, I'm not going to say it's not a lot of money. I think it is a lot of money, but I think it's easy to go above that, especially if you have assets, because your assets can quickly rise in value. So if your assets are worth $200,000 a year because you bought a house at $100,000 and then 2 years later it's worth $300,000, that's not insane to happen in this day and in this age because of inflation. So if that is happening, then it's easy for a lot of people that may not be bringing in $400,000 cash each year, but their equity is rising in their assets. That now their equity is bringing in, maybe $100,000 in a year, and now they're easily that couple that was 200 and 100 is now at that $400,000 minimum. That can happen so quick and so easy, and that can shake up somebody's whole finances. I don't think it's a good precedent to take. I don't. But I think that given clarity on a certain key issues, I think that it could be good because especially if Trump can possibly raise the monthly financial burden on the everyday household by $1,700 a month. That's not good. It's a lot to figure out. Keep tuning into the Do They Like Us segment of things. And let's finish this off. And we got one last thing we want to government. Checks and balances, right? Like they got all these big ideas. Maybe that's why a lot of them don't implement their ideas because you get in there and then, you got a Republican House and then like a Democratic Senate. But then it's like, I just feel like, I don't know, guys, what do y'all think? Do you think that it should be simple just to have one ruler? We already almost there. We only got two, right? Might as well just have one. We can get more done with one person that ruled everything. We get way more done. Now, I don't think it'd be good in the long run, though. I don't. You couldn't talk about them. I couldn't be doing this video about them. It's better this way. It's way better. So either we get a deal or everybody is messed up. Like make it either little people or some people have to sacrifice for the mass of all. And I guess that's the ultimate argument, right? When it comes to us as a nation or as a people, the ultimate argument is some or all. Either you tax a little bit of people a lot, or you tax everybody a little bit. I don't know which one of y'all think is better. They are the worst. We got some people commenting. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I will read these comments. Let's just see what that's on right now. The government is broke AF. They are the worst money managers. Man, listen, I agree. They are. The government is the worst money manager. And the thing is, they have no accountability. That's what I agree with Trump when he talks about bringing an audit to the actual government, right? If you bring an audit to the government, like that makes so much sense to me because it's now to the point where now there's accountability. Where did this money go to? Who did that money go to? Why did it go to them? How much went to them? And he was talking about bringing Elon Musk in. I thought that was just funny because, now you give Elon Musk real power. But at the same time, everybody's motivated by personal agendas. So it's not it's no telling what would really happen with that. But I do think it's a great point that you made. Big shout out to you, War Sheep Podcast. Appreciate that. War Sheep Podcast and reactions. Yeah, appreciate that. And you make a solid point. I completely 100% agree. All right, y'all. Let's go in here for our last addition to the Do They Like Us segment of things, guys. I saw this the other day, just came out. It's really a interesting thing. I say pretty powerful. It's about the racial wealth gap and also black banks in America. So, we always I talk to you guys about, what I'm saying. To me, it doesn't really mean that much about the presidential election because ultimately they don't really do too much for our personal life. They don't really do too much on our everyday American, everyday person. That being said, let's learn about our history and where we come from and what we did and the importance of being able to really control your own environment and your own life because America is for America. Take that how you want to take it. America's for America, so you should be for yourself. at the end of the day, now I do love America. If you can't tell, I really do. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, bro. I mean, I'll live other places in my life, but like I wouldn't. Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
A racial wealth gap.
The racial wealth.
There's concern about a racial wealth gap.
The racial wealth gap is stark.
The racial wealth gap is tremendous.
A gap between white and black America.
What is the racial wealth gap and why is everyone talking about it? The racial wealth gap is a measure of wealth inequality between racial groups in the US. Here's a prime example. Black families make up 14% of the population but own only 5% of American wealth, while white households make up 65% of the population but control 80% of the wealth.
14% of the population is black people. Remember that thing, that documentary, 13%, 13th Amendment, 13%. So 14% of the population is black people, but we have 5% of U.S. wealth. The Chinese government controls more U.S. wealth than black people. And I have not looked that up, but I know that's a fact. But no, that's a real fact though. Like, look it up. I guarantee you the Chinese government controls more U.S. wealth than black people. White people control, they're 65% of the population and they're 80% of U.S. wealth. But now we're going to check out, why is this? Why? Let's check it out. Why? Let's get into it.
The gap traces back to the 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, which led to freedom for almost 4 million Black Americans. By 1860, their labor accounted for 60% of U.S. exports, $200 million a year, but Black Americans received nothing. No land, no money. Without any money or land, how could newly free Black Americans create wealth? One way could have been the banking system. Alexander Hamilton, the father of American banking, said that banking is how wealth is created. But Black Americans were overwhelmingly excluded from using banks. So what happens when a community is barred from the mainstream banking system? They create their own.
Your child needs these three key factors to get into an Ivy League or top 25 university. And it's not having a good GPA or SAT score.
Black banks are supposed to close the racial wealth gap. So what happened? For almost 200 years, there have been 3 unique barriers that have kept Black America from generating the wealth the Black community intended: discriminatory lending, housing discrimination, and economic segregation. First, let's talk about discriminatory lending. Following the Civil War in the late 1800s, Black Americans had few freedoms or financial options due to legal segregation and Black codes. Black codes were laws that restricted the freedom and movement of Black people and forced them to work for low wages. If you were Black, a white bank would either bar you from entering, deny your loan, or charge you higher interest rates. These were common practices of discriminatory lending, and it created a need for financial.
Oh, I think it's helpful to just take a step back. I used to be, not even used to, but like I told y'all, I voted for 2016 Hillary Clinton, 2020 Donald Trump, 2020 Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. So now 2024, like I said, I'm pretty much open as far as who I'm gonna vote for. Not really married to one party, right? But this being said, one thing that I went through like a phase of like, yo, why does it even matter to keep going back and talking about what Black people did and what we didn't do, and what happened to us or what didn't happen to us, and and what did it. But as of late, I've really been going back and understanding different things, because Black people are amazing and we've done amazing things in this country, but it's not to the forefront of this country's memory, right? So it's not to the forefront of this country's memory, meaning that it's not to the forefront even of the common Black child growing up. It's not even to the forefront of their knowledge and their teachings. It's not at all. So a lot of things that we're going to learn about here has never been taught about in the school system. And it just makes you wonder, like, why, right? So you get glazed over it. And we all know that the Democratic Party largely controls the school system and largely controls the public school curriculum, right? But this being said, even, Black people always vote Democrat. They don't teach us about Black excellence and what Black people have really accomplished. I didn't even know Black people had their own banks until I got out of college. I got out of college, not in school, not out of high school. It was out of college. Granted, I did drop out of college, but I don't think if I didn't learn it throughout, my 12 years of K through 12, that I would have learned it throughout my year and a half of college. So it's disgusting to me. It's really disgusting. And that being said, it's important to actually learn the history of things, because one, it gives you you can detect patterns, and also you can learn on what you can do personally in your own life in the future to grow and to honor the dreams that our ancestors have had for us, being specifically the Black people and the Black people living in America. And that's why I say Black. And I actually just read a comment earlier that talked about like Black is a color of the universe or something like that. Like, yeah, that's very beautiful. And I'm gonna like respond to that comment. Very beautiful what that person said, but that's not the reality of the situation. People ain't talking about Black as the core essence of, no, people are talking about Black as African American people living in America. African Americans, Black culture, niggas. That's what they talking about. Let's spit it Black. That's what they talking about when they say Black. So we need to separate what we're talking about. Are we talking about Black as a color? Or are we talking about African Americans? There need to be a clear extinction. I feel like that, but who am I? I'm a person on the internet, whatever.
Services that Black-owned banks would aim to provide.
Black communities found ways to create new.
Talking about him when they say Black, right? When we talk about Black, we talking about him. We ain't talking about no color that comes from everybody. No. We talking about this guy right here when we say Black. Keon Burt.
Opportunities. Credit unions and cooperative efforts to make sure that as they were locked out from mainstream financial institutions, they had the systems in place to make sure that their financial needs were met.
In 1890, one of the earliest Black banks was operating in especially hostile territory, the Jim Crow South. Alabama's first Black-owned and Black-operated bank, the Alabama Penny Savings
I may have heard about this in school, but I really don't remember, and I feel like I would have remembered this.
Bank was founded by Reverend William Pettiford. Influenced by Booker T. Washington's principles of self-help and racial solidarity, the Alabama Penny Savings Bank lent money to churches and professionals in Birmingham when
But I feel like the way we remember a George Washington or like a Christopher Columbus or like all those kind of people, like why don't we remember these kind of people? Why weren't they forced in our brain the same way is all I'm saying. Isn't this a real, like, this is the first Black bank after everything that Black people went through. The first Black bank opens up. This should have been a big thing in our school system that was taught. This should have been like a staple of something I remember throughout my whole life. Just like I remember George Washington and all these other people that I don't really care about. The leader of the Confederate Army. I still remember his name's like on the tip of my head, but I didn't even remember this. Like, this is disgusting. It's disgusting.
other banks wouldn't. And it did this during a time when the Alabama legislature was doing everything in its power to deny Black political and
it keep raining outside. It's crazy.
Economic freedom. Pettiford partnered with powerful white bankers in Birmingham who helped with administrative and staff.
Boy, was a big stepper, but like getting out here in the Jim Crow South, partnering with white bankers to help with administrative staff and training. Boy, is a big stepper.
Training. These partnerships were like cheat codes during a time when segregation laws made Black and white relations very difficult. In 1913, the Penny Savings Bank constructed a 5-story building that housed not only the bank, but dozens of other Black businesses. The rent from those businesses provided funding.
I'm integrating vertically. Y'all niggas blew it.
And investment capital, something Black banks serving poor communities.
So all of the businesses were all funded by the bank. It's crazy.
Struggled to get. The Alabama Penny Savings Bank faced financial risks unique to Black banks. A lack of capital or money to invest put Black banks in a risky position. Not only did segregation laws shrink the number of potential customers, low-income customers made smaller deposits and more withdrawals. This meant, 1, operation costs were higher, so Black bank owners invested more of their own money to keep the bank stable.
Because they constantly taking money out, right? So every transaction they got to pay for. But then also, the more money you keep in your bank, you can like potentially borrow against that money, right? But if you're in a bank where that's what I'm saying. Like that'd be the whole thing where. Let's get into this.
And 2, it restricted their revenue and lending capacity. Fewer loans meant smaller profits. Pettiford's partnerships with larger banks meant he had aid during difficult times, and the bank grew significantly under his guidance. Assets reached over $540,000 by 1913, equivalent to approximately $17.1 million today. By 1914, the Alabama Penny Savings Bank was the largest and strongest Black bank in the United States. But no.
Hear that. The largest and strongest Black bank in the United States was the Alabama Penny Savings Bank. I went to public schools all my life, But my first public school I went to was an inner city public school. I don't remember being taught this. And when I say inner city, I mean primarily black public school. Then I switched to like a primarily white public school. When I say primarily black, I mean like 90% black and 10% whatever else. And then when I say primarily white, I mean 95% white and 5% whatever else. So in both of those scenarios, I spent 6 years at each environments. I never was taught this. And I'm willing to almost willing to like bet the bank that I've never was taught this. And the fact that I don't remember it leads me even more to believe that I never was taught this, because I got a strong memory. I got a strong memory. So I got the kind of memory that I remember the meaningless things from when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I would remember this particularly because I swear the sergeant for the Confederate Army is still on the top of my head. Was it Ulysses Grant? You're about to make me look it up. I swear I think that's who it was. My point is, I remember stuff like this, but I don't remember the largest black bank, the largest first black bank, and then the largest one in the world at that had their own freaking, like, man, this is crazy, bro. How do I not hear about stuff like this? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's important for us to know our real history and our real roots. They don't want us to know this. They're not like us. Do they even like us? Like, come on.
No one could be convinced to help the bank after his death. The bank failed just 1 year later, causing depositors to lose all their money. While the Alabama Penny Savings Bank provided...
So he was the glue. When bro died, everything basically fell apart. We just heard that. That's crazy.
...an alternative, was the largest and strongest black bank in the United States. But no one could be convinced to help the bank after his death. The bank failed just 1 year later, causing depositors to lose all their money. While the Alabama Penny Savings Bank provided an alternative to discriminatory lending, Jim Crow segregation made long-term economic advancement nearly impossible. The second barrier to building wealth: housing discrimination.
If you're a web designer, here are 4 Wix Studio features you've got to know.
Second, y'all.
One significant driver to the racial wealth gap, as I mentioned before, is going to be homeownership. Homeownership is a significant driver of wealth, whereby every year of homeownership, homeowners gain about $14,000 in equity. Conversely, if you don't have access to homeownership, you don't have access to that type of equity and that cushion that you could get from having money saved from homeownership.
Housing discrimination allows banks to deny home loans to the black community through a practice called redlining. Redlining was a government-sponsored practice of denying mortgages and other financial services.
The public school system did something right. I learned about this, all right?
To segregated black and brown neighborhoods. It's called redlining because bankers literally drew red lines around undesirable communities. One black household in a middle-class community was enough to make the federal government deny mortgage loans in that area. As a result, black families turned to...
They treated black people like a bad apple. So you got one of them in this community. The whole thing is messed up. You got one. It's not funny, but it is kind of funny.
Predatory lenders, or were shut out from home ownership completely.
We just keep having to fight battles, but a lot of the things that have happened to black folks in America were orchestrated and they were legal. That was systemic. I mean, it wasn't like it just happened that way. It was designed to be that way.
Black banks made it their mission to...
That what bro just said is a whole bar. What happened to black people in America was legal. So that's why there's no justification. It's like what happened to... I'm not gonna go there. I want to keep everything legal up here. So I'm not gonna go there. But my point is, what happened to other groups of people, it was deemed to be illegal, which is why they've treated differently in modern day, because it was deemed to be illegal. What happened to black people was legal. So they're not treated with any kind of like, oh my God, this happened to you. Oh my God. Like, oh my God, you got tattoos of slavery. Like other people, they got different kind of things that happen that, you know what I'm saying? I think if you know what I'm talking about, you know, and I just don't want to go there with this thing right now. So my point is, what happened to black people, it was legal. So there's not like a big hoorah about it in modern era. It was all legal. Whereas with other people, the whole world looked at it like that was messed up. Right there, you putting everybody together and you're putting them in different camps and things like that's horrible. It's illegal. I agree. It was illegal. But we look at a certain group of people and they're treated a different kind of way because everybody agrees that that was illegal. Whereas when it comes to black people in America, like you got one person to look at it and like blame it, right? Like in other scenarios, you have one person to blame, right? That person messed up this group of people. That's horrible. With black America, it's not the same way. And hold up, don't worry, your boy's back here still. Well, black America is not the same way, and that's the difference. And I think when you look at the fact that it's still deemed to be legal, it was deemed legal, everything that happens to black people, it's crazy. And that's why black people are not given as much empathy, in my opinion, because it was all legal.
Fight against these policies. Maggie L. Walker was America's first black female bank founder. Not only did she organize a black bank in the segregated South in 1903, but she managed to run a successful one in Richmond, Virginia, the former capital of the Confederacy. It was called St. Luke Penny Savings Bank. As a businesswoman and banker, Walker advocated for black women's financial independence
and black woman who this is crazy.
The advancement of the black community. She famously said,
"Let us put our monies together. Let us have a bank that will take the nickels and turn them into dollars."
By 1920, Walker's bank had provided more than 600 mortgages to black families. It also created jobs for black professionals, allowing them to leave the lower paying jobs. But just because a black family received a home loan didn't mean the challenges stopped there. In 1925, Dr. Osteen Sweet and his wife Gladys bought a home on the edge of Detroit's Black Bottom slums for $6,000 more than its market value. But after
boy was a big baller, big stepper. Like that's the thing, bro. Black people really was like out here balling. Boy paid over market value, nothing. Put my family in here.
Moving in, a white mob surrounded their home for several.
Then you got those white boys that came in here and hate.
Days. They wanted them out. This story is common. The fear that a black family moving near a white neighborhood would tip property values and send the neighborhood into decline was so great that some white homeowners were willing to resort to violence. Once the mob started to damage his property, Sweet fought back and violence broke out. A white man was shot.
Not a white
Sweet
man.
was later charged and then, surprisingly, acquitted of murder, but the fear of decline.
Yo, he the first real stepper out here. The boy got shot somebody and got acquitted. But I guess he was in Detroit, right? He was in Detroit. When I say he was in Detroit, meaning he was in Michigan and they were in the North. So it was in Jim Crow South.
Is a self-fulfilling prophecy. When the white upper and middle class leave a community, property values plummet. Businesses and bankers stop investing and neighborhoods are left underfunded. Walker's Bank continued to provide loans even when it wasn't commercially profitable. St. Luke served its community for 100 years until just before the 2008 financial crisis. Housing discrimination has continued to make black home ownership unattainable for many, widening the wealth gap. The third barrier is the result of decades of lending and housing discrimination, economic segregation.
Now check this out. When it comes to economic segregation, I feel like that's what helped me like easily become more so not forget about racism. Like I still think racism exists. I just don't think it's as prevalent. I feel like now it's economic racism. Like nah, hear me out. I feel like economic racism is the new form of racism in this modern day era, right? Like meaning like they're about to explain a little bit what I'm saying right here, but just to take it a step further real quick. Like, of course, you got economic racism as far as where the people you live at, right? If you live in a certain kind of community, the people that you live within that community, they want to look at you like, okay, I know you're economically somewhat on the same pattern as me. So now you feel like there's a mutual bond there. Whereas like if you go to like a different kind of community, which is maybe like a lower class community, a hood. I'm about to sugarcoat it, the hood. If you go to the hood, you know what I'm saying? A trailer park, a ran down trailer park, because they got some nice trailer parks. Put some respect on the trailer parks. But if you go to a ran down trailer park, you go to the hood, the ghetto, and I say ghetto, I'm talking about Section 8 housing, big blocks, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. If you go there, those people are going to be, that's going to be your people. That's going to be your economic, you know what I'm saying? That's your economic clique. So now you take somebody that's from a different kind of environment that goes to that environment who may not be in a hood environment. They go to that environment. They're going to maybe not feel, I mean, depending on who you are, they not going to be racist, but they may feel a little uncomfortable depending on if you're comfortable with being in that kind of environment. If you've never been in that kind of environment, you're going to feel uncomfortable. So I feel like that's where racism today may come from, because now there goes to judgments that's, maybe you're stereotyping people just because of the economic situation that they're in. So this is where I think about the term as far as economic racism. Think about it just in a simple way with people who have they live behind gated communities. If you're in a gated community, you know that everybody in your gated community on the same kind of time you on, right? So you're going to be more social, more willing to socialize with somebody in your gated community. Whereas somebody outside your gated community, maybe you at the park and maybe you don't like the way that that person is dressed. Maybe they don't wear the same type of clothes that you're wearing. Then you may be economically racist. You economically racist for that person. All right. So this is my theory on economic racism, but let's go into economic segregation.
Economic segregation is the geographical separation of communities based on race and wealth. While redlining has now been illegal.
See, I think it's interesting that she put race first. Like, it's no secret that this is more of like a progressive program right here. You know, feel what I'm saying? But that being said, she put race first versus, she said economic, but then she said separated on race and wealth. I think it'd be more so separated on wealth. My point is, money is green. Money's not black or white. Money's green.
For over 50 years, you can still see its effects in the form of economic segregation.
Money is also silver or copper or digital, you know what I'm saying?
If you look at a map of a major US city, you'll see pockets of wealth alongside pockets of poverty in historic.
If you go to Cincinnati, downtown Cincinnati, this is over the Rhine. This is literally what over the Rhine looks like. It looks like this on one side. You see that? And that on the other side. I swear to God. It's literally like this, like the street. And it's more so separated by blocks, but not to be too specific. But yeah, it's like one block look like this and the next block look like that.
Historically segregated communities. And many of the predominantly black and brown neighborhoods are low income with unequal access to education, healthcare, and upward mobility.
You're seeing communities that don't have wealth as a function of slavery, as a function of Jim Crow, black codes, mass incarceration, redlining.
Bro just said you're seeing communities that don't have wealth as a function of slavery. I can't agree with that. I just personally, I can't. That's what I'm saying. I'm independent as it comes. I'm gonna give you like what I think, but at the same time, I'm not just like, it's all, the man keeping us down, That ain't where I come from. I'd be lying if I said that was my upbringing. That's not where I come from. I come from a different kind of upbringing, one that I'm very thankful for. But that being said, I don't believe that economic segregation is a new form of Jim Crow South. That sounds crazy.
Entering to a function of
and upward mobility.
You're seeing communities that don't have wealth as a function of slavery, as a function of Jim Crow, black code.
Just said, communities that don't have wealth. I feel like right there you are definitely desensitizing what the people that went through back then really had to go through. They went through something completely. Today you have the ability to attain wealth, whereas back then, as they just stated, the banks did not even give us people the same opportunities to even go into the same bank. You feel me? So at least now we in the same room is what I'm saying. At least now maybe you're in the same room, you're going to get judged different because they're going to be white people in power. So maybe if that white person comes from that pedigree of racism, non-economic racism, if they come from color racism, then of course you want to be judged different. But you also have the ability in the internet to get to step in and do it your own way if you really just want to get to the nitty-gritty of it. And that's all praises be to the internet and the decentralization of the banking system.
Mass incarceration, redlining, entering to a different system of financial services and products. And so the wealth that they should have, they don't have, and the wealth that they could have, they will never have because they're dealing with institutions that are preying upon the poverty.
Pockets of deep poverty are.
I can't agree with that because now we about to get into the whole idea of like people that are, the way that I stick and move out here, I do this thing called wholesaling real estate, right? So it's this thing where basically I take somebody that got a house like this. I take somebody who got a house like this and I'm like, yo, let me buy that house from you, right? Now I connect the dots. Now, to be real with you, my real goal is to become a huge landowner in the United States of America because I feel like I owe that to my ancestors. Instead of me constantly selling these properties and, getting paper and flipping it off and selling it to somebody else, I feel like I owe it to my ancestors to become a real landowner in the United States of America. Watching stuff like this really gets me back and humble me to realize what I really am here for. You feel me? I feel like I'm here for that because the knowledge that I have and the passion that I have to do it, it's unmatched. Now, that being said, what I do right now, I take people that have a house like this and I say, yo, I'm gonna give you $50,000 for this house. Now, I know that all fixed up, this house is probably worth $150,000. So I'm going to go and let's say that this house probably needs about $30,000 into it, 150, take it back 75% will be your profit. Let's just say you got to put, like I said, 20 or 30 into it. I'm gonna sell it for like $65,000, right? They go come out 90, 95 all in, 150. That's actually too good of a profit. So I'll probably sell it for more. But on top of my head, that's what I do. So I come away with $15,000. The person who has this house right here, they have $50,000. I walk away with, $20,000. The person who just bought it, they're at $70,000. They're going to put 30 into it. They're at $100,000. Then they go and they put it on the market. They list it for 160. They close out at 155. They take 3% in committed realtor fees and maybe 10% altogether with lender points and all that. They come out with somewhere between $35,000 to $40,000, something like that, right? My point being is that what I just did there, if it's a person that's keeping it as a rental, then ideally that person that person is keeping it as a rental and it's a Black or a person that's a non-corporate entity that's keeping it. If it's a corporate entity that keeps it, then I'm now contributing to the gentrification process of things, right? And that gentrification process of things in a negative way, because now I'm leaving it in the corporate hands. Now, if it's a flipper that come in, I'll be even happy to sell it to a flipper because at least that flipper is going to go back and they're going to give it to a single family residence. Now, if it's a Black or white person, I really don't care. But I'm just saying if it's a single family, actual family, they're going to be keeping it into a community thing, right? Whereas if you give it to a corporate entity, now they're going to package this one house into a big fund of a lot of houses. They're going to sell the returns that they're getting from these houses, which means they're going to chalk up rent for this little small house. They're probably not going to be on Section 8, or maybe they will. I don't know. But my point is they're going to run up rent really high, and they're going to push out the people that was in this community. So as a Black person, I still benefit from it, but I don't think it's an overall good thing. That's why I really want to own property. But not to get too lost, let's go back here.
Those mass incarceration, redlining, entering to a different system of financial services and products. And so the wealth that they should have, they don't have, and the wealth that they could have, they will never have because they're dealing with institutions that are preying upon the poverty.
That's what I was going to, the preying upon poverty part. Now, the preying upon poverty part, you have a choice to sell or to not to sell. That's the reality of the situation. You have a choice to keep it or not to, or to sell it. You sell it to somebody like me, you helping me out. You keep it in the Black community, and I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? I'm feeding it back into the community as well. But now I go and I sell it out to somebody else, then it's not a corporate, or it's a corporate entity. Then I'm feeding into the system, and the system don't care if you're Black or white. The system really don't. It's all about the money at that point. So you're not really preying upon poverty by, you have a choice here, and that's the only thing that aggravates me somewhat when it comes to the super left, the super pro-Black. The super pro-Black and the super left and the super woke and those people that act like us as Black people don't have choices. We have choices. Don't minimize the struggle of what people went through 60 years ago to say that we are going through the same thing now, which we are not. We have way more choices than they had 60 years ago. That's just a fact.
Pockets of deep poverty are typically the areas Black banks serve, but they struggle to turn a profit and create wealth in their underfunded communities. So what would happen if a low-income community was able to support its businesses and entrepreneurs and keep money flowing within that community? Well, we actually know what that would look like. In the 1900s, during the height of segregation, 3 notable pockets of Black wealth existed. One was in Durham, North Carolina. During this time, Durham was home to more Black millionaires than any other city in America. Durham's Haytime neighborhood and its Black financial district created a self-sustaining Black Wall Street and was a safe haven from Jim Crow.
I heard about Black Wall Street. I heard about Black Wall Street, but not in school.
America. Black-owned businesses and wealthy white partners invested in Black innovation, talent, and enabled the flow of capital in the community. During a time where there were few options for Black businesses to secure capital, Mechanics and Farmers Bank was the only financial support for small borrowers like farmers and laborers in Durham. M&F,
this is old girl, right? This is the woman that owned that bank.
And Durham's Black Wall Street managed to keep the Black dollar circulating within its community for decades.
And it's a black Wall Street because we're able to keep the black dollar inside the community. You create black goods and you sell it to black people who spends black money. So you keep it inside the community. But as we can see, one thing that happens with inclusivity is that there's no exclusivity, right? So we're so inclusive, black, white, Asian, persuasion, you know what I'm saying? All these other people, we're including it all into one, that there's no exclusive growth for one community. Whereas, if we just speaking honestly, the Asian community does have a whole bunch of little Asian towns, or my bad, little Chinatown. That's Little Chinatown. They have a whole bunch of little Chinatowns. Whereas those little Chinatowns are exclusive just to, I mean, of course, black person go there, white person go there, African can go there, you know what I'm saying? Indian can go there. Anybody can go there. But the point is, for the most part, other Asians and Chinese people go there and they're getting their culture. And that's what I'm saying is black people, we got to think about what's our culture? What's our actual culture? And when I say black, I think I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, brother, in the beginning of this thing, right? I'm talking about black men and women that were raised in America. Not just black as a color. It's two different things. It's way different. Not just the color black, but the black people that were raised and brought up in America. Whether you were inner city or outer city, what's our culture? Because we don't have a little Chinatown where there's China food and all that. What's black people food? We can't just say it's fried chicken. Everybody eat fried chicken. White people eat fried chicken. Everybody eat fried chicken. Pork. You know what I'm saying? People, I don't know, bro. That's just the struggles of growing up in America and being black. Because that's all we are. Or maybe we African American. I got to do a 23andMe. I got to figure my life out.
And created a thriving black middle class. But most black banks struggle to do this, and it's why economic segregation has continued to be a barrier. Unless every buyer and seller deposits their money into a black bank, eventually the black dollar will flow into and grow the mainstream economy, leaving the black.
She said the mainstream economy, she's talking about the non-exclusivity, right? It's not exclusive to the black community. It's the inclusive economy. So the economy that it doesn't, the economy that the only color that matters is green. That economy.
Community.
Which some would argue that's racist to buy something from a black person just because they're black. I would argue against that. I think that it's important I think that it's important to buy something from a black person just because it's black, but not to skip on the quality of service just because it's a black person. That's two different things.
With scraps. The catch-22 of black banking is that the very institutions needed to help communities escape the deep poverty caused by discrimination and segregation inevitably became victims of that same poverty. In 1958, North Carolina cut a freeway through the heart of Hayti, and Durham's Black Wall Street, along with hundreds of homes and businesses, were destroyed. And M&F Bank couldn't withstand the decades-long decline in black banking without change. In 2015, the organization decided to diversify its customer base and market.
2015? I didn't know they were still around.
Outside the black community.
Oh, they went outside the black community.
This is my hack for working smart. Money.com. Let me show you how I use Money.com to create a tail.
Out of the 5,400 FDIC-insured financial institutions, only 23 are black-owned as of 2018. If you're black and you walk into a bank today, there's a chance you could be arrested for trying to withdraw money from your own account, denied a mortgage even if you have good credit, or issued predatory loans with an account. Today, there's a chance you could be arrested for trying.
Black Panthers director Ryan Coogler mistaken for a bank robber in Atlanta. Bro, how do you get mistaken for a bank robber? I'll be curious to read. How do you get mistaken for, like, how do you get mistaken for a bank robber, bro? I don't get that. That's funny.
To withdraw money from your own financial literacy.
That's really dope, though. The nation's first digital bank, One United Bank. Check them out. One United Bank.
To low-income community could. Initiatives like student loan debt forgiveness, which disproportionately affect Black and Brown graduates, and expanding affordable housing programs and other forms of reparations could help close the gap.
And reparation doesn't have to be a boogeyman concept. It's not all about cash. It's about access. Access is a form of reparations, right?
Yeah, give us those reparations.
Black banks may not be able to completely solve the racial wealth gap, but they are one important piece of the puzzle in growing Black wealth in America.
Let's get you into a home. Let's get you into that business. Let's get you into a bank account. and let's get you started on this journey of economic mobility so this generation and the next can say,
M's in my bank account. Hey.
I'm no longer a victim of these mainstream policies and products. We're on our way toward freedom.
Now, shout out to bro for making that recovery. I love the fact that they allowed him to say that we are no longer a victim, because he definitely started off with the victim thing, and as I told you, I don't align with that at all. Let's play that back real quick. Nice bar.
Mobility, so this generation and the next can say, I'm no longer a victim of these mainstream policies and products. We're on our way toward freedom.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to PBS Origins so you don't miss a single episode of In the Margins.
They be having really good Harina Bahat. That was really good. Shout out to her. Guys, I think that ultimately when it comes to this, man, that it's really the bulk of it. I think we got some comments here. All right. Shout out to you, Mr. War Sheep, in podcast and reactions. Black has no peoples, no country or tribe, but they don't respect us. That's why they don't respect us and can't give us anything, because we are too not identifying ourselves as African or Native American. We are too busy saying we are Black or African American, which gets no respect. I hear you, my man. I hear you. Appreciate you guys tuning in today on this episode of the Get Stepping with S2 podcast. I do want to apologize. I had some technical difficulties with my camera today. I thought the past 2 times that I've been streaming, this whole time I was thinking that my camera was getting charged. So I know the setup wasn't as professional as it was, as it usually is, but we fixing that. So next time, don't worry, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Fool me, can't get fooled again. Fool me one time, shame on you. Hey, fool me twice, can't put the blame on you. Fool me 3 times, fuck the peace sign, load the chopper, let it ring on you. J. Cole, man, crazy dude. I can't believe you apologized to Kendrick Lamar. It's a different story for a different day. All right, big steppers, I'm out of here, man. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Go ahead and leave a like for the algorithm. We'll have these chopped up and chopped and sent out to you guys throughout the day today. Hooday. Until next time, I will catch y'all. And as always, until next time, get the step and get the step. It feels so weird looking like this to my stuff. I gotta get back. Until next time, as always, get the stepping, get the stepping, get the stepping. Hey. All right. Where is my? Oh, there we go.